So the last game of tonight's action in the MLS's back tournament have just concluded, and what a day it's been in terms of these games in the MLS's back tournament. We saw an improbable comeback that happened in the morning game. We saw a 6-goal thriller that basically defense was an optional in the second one. And then in the third game, even though things kind of got a little bit boring in the first half, the second half really makes up for, and at the last 30 minutes there was definitely a lot of drama that happened in the last game of this match. But either way, this was really, I think as good as it gets in terms of how these games play out in the MLS's back tournament, and that I really think 3 of these games could really be ranked if you want to see what is the best game so far in the MLS's back tournament. Now, that being said, let us actually get into the first game, which is the game that featured that improbable comeback that DC United did to Toronto, as this game ended in a 2-2 draw. Now, in the first half, TFC were by far the better team, and they were rewarded that by scoring first in the 11th minute from Aquinola to Pozuelo. Aquinola played very well in this game. He did a very good job filling in the shoes of Josie Altidore, who unfortunately didn't play in this game. He could have had a second goal just 5 minutes later, but unfortunately was denied by MiB. And as I said, TFC looked like they were by far the better team and just completely controlled this game. In the 44th minute, it's Aquinola again scoring from Pozuelo to give TFC a 2-0 lead. And I wrote shambolic defending because it was shambolic defending from DC United. Like, Briant just completely got his pocket picked by Pozuelo, and Pozuelo basically played a perfect ball into the middle for Aquinola, who all he had to do was just tap it into the empty net for probably the easiest goal he'll ever score in his career. So at that point, it was 2-0 in favor of TFC. Ola Kamara had a chance to give DC United back, and really that was probably the best chance they had up until that point, but Quentin Westberg made an incredible save to deny DC a chance to head to halftime with at least a goal to think about. And then, right as the halftime whistle was about to blow, Moreno got his second yellow and got sent off in this game, as at that point, I just feel like probably the game was over. Like, I don't see how in the world DC was going to be coming back into this game with the way that they play in the first half and the fact that they were down to 10 men for the remaining of the game. Now, in the second half, TFC left off where they picked off in the first half, which was just completely dominated in this game, and we're looking for that third goal to pretty much seal the deal. Then in the 63rd minute, Greg Vanny decided to take out 2 of his center back and replace with Simon and Zavaleta. And I want to highlight this because this was really the decision that eventually would come back to haunt Vanny and was really the downfall of TFC. And, you know, I understand that what he was thinking maybe is because he wants to bring in some fresher legs and he thinks that the game is already done, so that he can, of course, decided to take out his starting center back so that they can save for future game. However, he decided to replace with 2 guys that has been very bad in terms of defending, and that, or 2 guys that are very bad defender, and it's shown in these next 2 goals that they can see. The first one in the 84th minute came from Pipa Higuain, who scores from Felipe. That is Higuain's first ever goal for TFC. He actually literally just came on 6 minutes and scored that goal, and that I also didn't write here, but I want to mention how that was just not only a filthy goal that Higuain did by chipping the goalkeeper there, but where in the world was the back line there for TFC? Like, the fact that Higuain just completely gone down the middle, completely uncontested, just makes me wonder, did the TFC backline even try, or did they just fall asleep during that time? And then just 6 minutes later, the improbable happened. Briant would score from Bourbon and Felipe to tie the game up at 2 apiece, and there you have it. That is the final score of this game, as DC United, despite the fact that they were not even anywhere close to being in this game and were down to 10 men for majority of the game, somehow, in some way, still were able to come back from down 2-0 to draw 2-2 in the final 6 minutes of this game. Shots in this game, TFC had 17 shots compared to 8 that DC had. 7 shots on goal compared to 5 that DC had. 6 shots off target compared to 3 that DC had. 4 shots that was blocked compared to none that DC had. And possession-wise, 66% possession compared to 34% possession that DC United had. And for Toronto, this felt like a loss for them. And I feel like this 2-0 lead that they blown hurts even more than the opening day game when they blew a 2-0 lead against the Quakes. Because at least in that game, the Quakes weren't actually down a man, and that the goal that they conceded in stoppage time was just a wonderful free kick from Alinas. In this instant, DC were down to 10 men. And the 2 goals that they concede is easily preventable, especially the goal that Higuain, of course, scored, where the complete back line of TFC just fell asleep during that point. And that I won't be surprised that if TFC find themselves in a situation where heading into the last day, they might need a point or 3 to, of course, move on into the next round, and they don't find themselves moving on to the next round if they cannot get those points. They're going to look back at this resort as the one that got away from them, and that this is the resort that is the reason why they are not advancing to the next round, and they're basically taking that plane trip back to Toronto. But moving on, in terms of the next game, is the crazy game between LAFC versus the Dynamo. And, even though so far throughout this tournament we haven't seen a lot of goals that was going to happen, I kind of had a feeling this one was going to be a game that might feature a lot of goals, because for the past couple of games, these two teams seems to provide some goal fest that has happened, and it happened again in this one between both of these teams. Now, before I start talking about this game, Bradley Wright Phillips actually started in this game while Diamande was actually on the bench, and I was kind of surprised by that because I thought Dia was actually going to get the start, and that eventually BWP was going to come off the bench and make an impact for LAFC, but instead it's actually the other way around. And later on, I realized why Diamande wasn't actually he wasn't actually in the starting 11, and that there is maybe a little bit concern about what happened after this game. As a little bit of spoiler alert, he actually got subbed off because of an injury. Now, the goal scoring all started in the 8th minute when Memo Rodriguez scores from Quintero to give the Dynamo a 1-0 lead. That lead, unfortunately, was short-lived because 11 minutes later, Bradley Wright Phillips would score his first goal from Rossi and Blessing, and just like that, the game is tied up at 1 apiece. But I thought Houston looked very dangerous in the first half, and they looked very dangerous in terms of their transition, and that with them doing so well in terms of the counter-attack and also those over-the-top ball, LAFC just had no answer in terms of trying to deal with that. And in the 29th minute, Memo Rodriguez would score again from Valentin to give the Dynamo a 2-1 lead, and this, unsurprisingly, came off of a transition that the Dynamo, of course, did. As I mentioned, LAFC just had no answer whatsoever with the way that the Dynamo was able to be so fast on the counter-attack and doing so well in terms of the transition from defense to attack. Then, right on the stroke of halftime, the Dynamo would take a 3-1 lead, and it would be coming from Albert Veliz from Quintero. Originally, this one was ruled offside, but they look at VAR, and it seemed like at least just stay onside in terms of that instant, and that he was later awarded the goal, and that the Dynamo was up 3-1 heading into halftime. Now, despite the fact that the Dynamo were up 3-1, and there's definitely a lot of people were shocked of how bad LAFC was playing, I kind of also had a feeling somehow LAFC was going to find a way to get back into the game, and I feel like the Dynamo, even though they're up 3-1 in this game, they really need to think about getting that fourth goal to really put LAFC away, because LAFC coming out of the second half, they were really piling the pressure on the Dynamo, and that they could have had a chance to make it 3-2 when BWP fortunately was denied by Marich. Eventually, they did get that second goal in the 63rd minute when Rossi scored from Atuesta and Janila to make it 3-2 in favor of the Dynamo. Then it was 3-3 in the 69th minute when, yes, Brian Rodriguez, after all this wait of him potentially scoring the first ever goal for LAFC, has finally done it in the 69th minute as he scores from Blessing to tie the game up at 3 apiece. And I can't tell you how much of a relief he is. Like, he has just clearly been snake bit for the past couple of months and really for the past year since he's joined LAFC, and that hopefully with that goal that he of course score can maybe give him some confidence in that this might be a start of him started to score a couple more goals, because he's been waiting for that moment to finally celebrate a goal that he scored for a very, very long time. Houston, of course, when they were pinned back to 3-3, they really started to have a lot of trouble in terms of soaking up the pressure. Obviously, I understand what Tat Ramos was thinking in this game. He was trying to play the counter-attacking game, and while it was effective in the first half, the second half, though, it wasn't really as effective in that they weren't as good in terms of the transition as they did in the first half. And they also had a lot of trouble in terms of dealing this LAFC attack that, you know, even though they didn't have Vela in this game and pretty much throughout this tournament, they still look like a very dangerous team going forward. Now, Dio, as I mentioned in the beginning, he got subbed off with an injury, and he literally just came on 5 minutes ago before he had to sub off with an injury. So let's hope that is not a very serious injury. But then as the game continued on, I thought we were potentially going to see the fourth goal, and that I thought LAFC was potentially going to get it because the Dynamo looked like they were just hanging on to dear life. And they also gotta thank the fourth official in this game too, because for whatever reason, there were only 4 minutes of stoppage time in the second half, and even though we had so much action that was going on in the second half, and we had the hydration break and stuff like that, there was only 4 minutes of stoppage time, and that I feel like there clearly should have been more than the 4 minutes that we got in this game. But ultimately, that was enough time for the Dynamo to just hang on into this game and get a massive point against LAFC. In terms of the shots in this game, LAFC had 23 shots compared to the 9 that the Dynamo has, 6 shots on goal compared to the 5 that the Dynamo has, 8 shots off target compared to the 2 that the Dynamo has, 9 shots that was blocked compared to the 2 that the Dynamo has, and possession-wise, 72% possession compared to 28% that the Dynamo has. LAFC, of course, you know, unsurprisingly, they dominate pretty much every category in terms of the stats, but what they didn't dominate is the actual scoreline, and that this is going to be a very frustrating resort for LAFC, knowing the fact that even though they came back from 3-1 down, they could have easily won this game, and that I think Bob Bradley is going to be very concerned about the defense of this LAFC team, because this is now 2 games in a row that they concede free goals, and that it doesn't matter how good your attack is, as long as you do not have a good defense and your defense just give up like 2 or 3 goals per game, you are not going to win a lot of games. Just as their in-city rival LA Galaxy of how it's going for them when they have a good attack, but their defense just look as shallow as it gets. So, yeah, but moving on, and speaking of their in-city rival LA Galaxy, the Galaxy, of course, play against the Timbers in the last game, and unfortunately they suffer a 2-1 loss against the Portland Timbers in this one. Now, in the first half, 12 minutes into the game, the Galaxy had a penalty after there was a handball in the box, and Chicharito was stepping up for this penalty, and I thought for sure that this was going to be finally the moment where we saw Chicharito score his first ever goal in MLS. And although it's a penalty and it's not the prettiest, at least it's good to see him finally get off the mark. But unfortunately, that was not meant to be, because Steve Clark denied Chicharito from the spot, and then he denied Kleshton on the rebound. And this save that Steve Clark made kind of reminds a little bit of last night when Clint Irvin also made a penalty kick save, and that he actually also saved the rebound. So far, you know, in terms of penalties, we have 2 penalties in this tournament, and both of them has been saved. So, yeah, you know, people say that penalties usually is automatic doesn't seem like it is the case in this tournament, and it seemed like there is a bit of a struggle in terms of teams trying to take a penalty and able to score it in this instant. Now, I thought in the first half there wasn't really a lot of clear-cut chances in the first half, and that there was a lot of crosses from both of these teams, which I'm not surprised because both of these teams tends to love to cross the ball into the box, but just because they love to cross the ball into the box doesn't mean that it actually is put into a pinpoint range, and therefore that's why there wasn't really a lot of clear-cut chances in the first half. And I also thought Chicharito, besides that penalty, he was pretty much very, very quiet in the first half. Now in the 42nd minute, Larrea had a long-range effort that was saved by Bingham. It was very well hit from Larrea, but looked like Bingham was always going to be comfortable to get to that one. And we had 2 halftime scoreless, and there wasn't really a lot of action happening. Although in the second half, this is when the action really picked up. Chicharito's shot actually went over the bar as he was wide open in the box. And at that point, when I saw him hit that ball over the bar when he was wide open, I had a feeling that, you know how Brian Rodriguez had kind of like a goal scoring curse heading into this game, and his goal scoring curse finally broke after he scored that equalizer for LAFC. I have a feeling he probably transferred it to Chicharito, because it looked like Chicharito have now got a goal scoring curse and nothing seems to go right for him. And it seemed like that kind of curse continued in the 52nd minute when he of course struck the top part of the post on a header, and the game remains at 0-0. But eventually we did get the opening goal in this game, and it came in the 59th minute when Abobasi scored from Blanco and Valeri to give the Timbers a 1-0 lead. Then Blanco would score to make it 2-0 in favor of the Galaxy. And I wrote classic Galaxy defense, because the fact that they basically let Blanco kind of through on the right side and unable to take the ball away from them, just to kind of shows you why this Galaxy defense is just kind of hot garbage, and why myself and pretty much every Galaxy fan can basically know that whatever this defense does, you always are going to be very nervous when their defense have to defend a situation, because there's just times like that where you just feel like, how in the world some of the most basic defending thing that you could do, and you still find a way to mess up in that situation. But yeah, at that point it was 2-0 in favor of the Timbers, but the game really changed in the 75th minute when Zaparic actually got his second yellow and got sent off in this game. And I thought we were going to be in for something very similar to last night game between SKC and Minnesota, where somehow in some way the Galaxy was going to overturn this 2-goal deficit, and we thought we might see something similar to what DC did early in this game and overturn a 2-goal deficit. It looks like their comeback trail started in the 81st minute when Gordon Weil, who literally just came on to the pitch, and actually this was his first touch that somehow, in some way, end up into the back of the net, and it looked like it was going to be 2-1 in favor of the Timbers, and it looked like they had a real shots of coming back from this. But unfortunately, they go to VAR, and it looked like on VAR, Gordon Weil unfortunately was in an offside position, and it's such a shame that you see this young kid unfortunately got his goal disallowed, because wouldn't it be amazing the fact that you're in your first ever MLS appearance and your first touch of your MLS appearance, and you scored a goal during that case? But it wasn't meant to be, although in the 88th minute he was kind of involved in terms of the goal scoring. And speaking of goal scoring, Chicharito finally broke that goal scoring curse in the 88th minute when he scored from Weil and Pavone to give the Galaxy some hope and really set up a grandstand finish heading into this game. And that the Timbers, at that point, it looked like they were just holding on for dear life. Now, for the Timbers, just like the Dynamo, I think they should really thank the fourth official in this game, because just like the game between LAFC and the Dynamo, for whatever reason, we only had 4 minutes of stoppage, even though we had VAR that was taking place, we had red cards that was happening, and we also had goals that was scored here in the second half. I have no idea why in the world there was only 4 minutes of stoppage during that point, but it was just enough time for the Timbers to hold on in this game as they get a crucial 2-1 win against the Galaxy in this one. Shots in this game, the Timbers had 12 shots compared to 13 that the Galaxy had. 6 shots on goal compared to 4 that the Galaxy had. 3 shots off target compared to 5 that the Galaxy had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that the Galaxy had. And possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that the Galaxy had. And that, again, for the Timbers, a crucial 3 points that they, of course, got in this game. Although I have a feeling they definitely need to play better than what they did against the Galaxy if they are going to try to take the challenge against the Dynamo and LAFC in these next 2 games. And as for the Galaxy, yeah, they're kind of in a little bit of a trouble right now. I mean, you know, when I look at how they played tonight, they look very uninspiring and kind of just look like how they play in the first 2 games. And that next game against LAFC, you know, I know in El Tráfico the Galaxy does have LAFC number, and it seemed like they always find a way to beat them, even though you think they're not going to do. But I just feel like right now the quality between these 2 teams, the Galaxy and LAFC, is probably wider than we have ever seen before when LAFC entered this league. That in that El Tráfico, you know, if you're a Galaxy fan, yeah, I hope you're ready to potentially get absolutely hammered by LAFC, and that, again, if they keep defending like what they did in this game against the Timbers, I won't be surprised LAFC is going to score at least 2 or 3 goals, and that's without Vela in this tournament heading into that El Tráfico game in a couple of days' time. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of tonight's game. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of tonight's game? Obviously, today, as I said in the beginning, this was probably a perfect day that we have seen in terms of these action in the MLS's back tournament. Seeing 3 of probably the most exciting game we have seen throughout all of these tournaments. But let's hope we get more of that tomorrow, and hope that we have some more exciting game that is going to be taking place. Tomorrow, the first game is also going to be kicking off at 6 a.m. Pacific time and 9 a.m. Eastern time between Seattle and Chicago. Then, of course, we have the Union take on Inter Miami in the last game, and then in the middle game, it's NYCFC versus Orlando City. So, yeah, looking forward to see tomorrow's game, and looking forward to do another review tomorrow. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.